All right, ladies and gentlemen, so you just watched the 5 themes of geography video with like the coolest guy in the world. We're going to go a little deeper into those 5 themes of geography: location, place, movement, human environment interaction, and region. But first, we'll talk about location. And location tells you where it is. There's 2 types of locations. Relative location, that is what is near you. For example, in my room, we are next to Mr. Crocker's room. We are in the 8th grade wing. We are next to Mrs. Cunningham's room. Princeton is north of Zimmerman. Princeton is to the south of Malacca. Those would be some examples of relative location. Absolute location, where you are exactly. With this, you would use coordinates, latitude and longitude, using degrees north and south and east and west. We will go into this a lot deeper when we use the My GPS Location app. Next, we move to place. What is it like when you get there? With place, you describe what it's like at a location. You could say something is cold, and that would work. It would just be a very boring way of describing it. You could also say a place is 35 degrees, which starts to give some specific information, but to really grasp what it's like at a place, or what it's like when you get there, you could go into details. It's 35 degrees in the winter, but 83 degrees in the summer. Or you could describe what it looks like. There are many skyscrapers and large buildings. You could say there's an amazing sunrise over the ocean. You could say, for example, at the tennis courts, which will be one of our locations for the Princeton Middle School Location Lab, you could say it's a hard surface, clay surface. Something like that that describes what it's like when you get to a place. You could also talk about the languages that are spoken there, the types of food. You could go a lot of different ways when using the theme of geography for place. Theme of geography that we will go to is movement. People and ideas get around. Obviously, with movement, how and why people travel. And so when we talk about movement, you could say to get from Princeton to Zimmerman, you go south on 169 US Highway 169, and there's other ways you could go. You could go County Road 1. There's other ways that you could get from Princeton to Zimmerman. You could also talk about what pushes people away from a location or pulls them to their new location. For example, maybe some people joined the Princeton School District or moved to Princeton this summer because they knew we were getting a new primary building. So that would be something that would pull them to a location. If you look in the Middle East, and we hear about Syrian refugees and people fleeing a location in the Middle East, and this has happened for a long time in that area. We look at what is pushing them away from a location, and so maybe there's a civil war taking place that pushes people away from a location. That has happened in our history as well. People have been pushed to the west to look for a better life. Those sorts of things have happened in our country as well. So that push and pull of what pushes people pushes people away from a location or pulls them to a new location. Also, with movement, languages spread, social media spreads, and other things like that. English wasn't always spoken in the North American continent. That was because we were, the United States of America were an English colony or a British colony, so we adapted their language. So that spread from Great Britain to what is now the United States. Social media spreads as well. For those that have seen the movie The Social Network, it looks at how Facebook started just in a very small location on some college campuses, and then it's spread to what it is now, where I'm sure a lot of your aunts and uncles, your parents, your grandparents, maybe your great-grandparents haven't used Facebook. Same things with other social media or new technologies. Twitter has spread over time. It's global, it's worldwide. Uber was something that started in just major cities, and now it's started to spread to more cities around the United States and around the world. So those are just some examples of how ideas get around as well. Our 4th theme of geography that was talked about in the video is human environment interaction. What do the people do to the environment, and what does the environment do for the people? Now, this is a lot of what you'll talk about in 8th grade science with Mr. Crocker, and so this works really well with our class. We've also done, for those of you that have been in Princeton for the last few years, we've done a lot of TA curriculum with the environment and stuff like that. And so It's the way humans can positively and negatively impact the environment. And so recycling, carpooling, or planting a tree are all ways that humans can positively impact the environment. That's positive human-environment interaction. There's also negative human-environment interaction, littering, just throwing your trash in the street, not picking up after yourself, throwing pop bottles, or other recyclable items, just throwing them in the trash, not recycling them. That would be an example of ways that we negatively impact the environment. Also, our carbon emissions. We'll look, as the year goes on, we'll look at different countries and their carbon emissions and how much carbon or like pollution type stuff that's going into the atmosphere. And so we'll look at how that impacts in countries like China, the health risks that happen when you have a lot of carbon emission that goes into your environment. Also, what does the environment do for the people? We dress and act a certain way depending on our environment. And so if it's 90 degrees out, we're probably not going to wear a winter coat and snow pants and boots outside. So that's the way that we have to work with the environment of what we wear. Also, there's natural resources that we use. Farming is a great example of ways that the environment helps us. Potatoes and fruits and the various corn, the various farming that takes place in Minnesota and across the United States, across the world, that we rely on and we depend on the environment for. As we're into minute 6 here, into minute 7, I need to speed this along a little bit, but our last theme of geography here is regions. What do locations have in common? Climate, religion, language, education, states or territories, borders of a nation. So there's a lot of different ways you can group places into regions. For example, Mille Lacs County is a region. People have similar, people are similar in that area. People in Mille Lacs County are different than those that would be in a county in Florida. The way they act, the way things that parts of their culture that are important are more similar in that area. Minnesota, that's a region. We talk about Minnesota nice. That could be a way that people act in Minnesota that groups them together. Midwest of the United States, those countries in the Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, all kind of have a similar style. Maybe way jobs are similar in those areas. And then North America is also another example of a region. You can go a lot of different ways with regions. Again, it's just this idea where blocks of areas around the world or around a state or around wherever, a country, that have similar religion, similar climate, language, education, those sorts of things. So those are your 5 themes of geography. This video is up on my website. If you have any questions or you need to go back over it, feel free to watch this at your own pace. Thank you for being such an amazing audience for this video.